The newest characters for 40k are here.
Spiky bits.
Welcome back, hobby maniacs. Today we are jumping right into the newest characters straight out of Vigilus. You've got Marneus Calgar and his Victrix bodyguard, and of course Haarken, World Claimer, Herald of the Apocalypse, the opposing force to this epic good versus evil Space Marine Astartes battle, well, among other factions on Vigilus. Marneus Calgar is a $55 box set, not too unlike, I suppose, previous versions of him with his retinue and things there. And Haarken World Claimer is one of those $35 character boxes that has pretty much become the starting point of any pricing in 8th edition Warhammer 40k. First up is Haarken, and once you get the box open, you'll definitely notice something different. There's no little black insert inside that has a little Habsy sprue of the character that you can just pop out. There's no like, I guess that collector tray kind of out of box experience type feel. This is a full-on sprue that's the size of the box. So basically it's a half a sprue. It's a quarter sprue, so to speak, as opposed to like an eighth of a sprue from what we've seen in the past. So there's a lot of components here and a lot of stuff going on. He is on a 40 millimeter base, which is a little different than the Raptors normally that he seems to benefit so much. And we'll go over the rules here in a second. But as far as the construction of the model goes, which we're going to put it together here in a minute and show you how he compares to people like Aramon or like Karn that have some 2.0 versions, so to speak. But for the most part, it looks pretty simple, like, left and right halves, top torso halves right there, and then you got some stuff going on with the backpack. I'm kind of glad that they kept off those a little bit wonky wings that the Warp Talons have. I'm not exactly a big fan of them personally, but yeah, and then the big spear right there, and pretty self-explanatory with the lightning claw and the spear. But we definitely know that if we can see this kind of detail on the miniature itself going forward, I feel like there's definitely potential for Abaddon to eventually rear his ugly head there. Maybe we'll get him sooner than later as well. So here's the sprue, and you can see all the components on it. Looking great. I mean, the base itself locking into that dead Primaris is pretty cool. The lightning claw looks very dynamic as well. The spear is pretty dope. Definitely reminds me of the Chaos Lord from Age of Sigmar that came out many years ago. I guess technically it was fantasy back then. Everything else looks pretty standard there. You got a trophy rack with some spiky bits on it. You got a big thing at skulls right there. Nothing unexpected or out of place on a Lord level guy for the Chaos Space Marines. And we have his rules from the brand new Vigilus Defiant book here. Everything is right in this spot, so it's all self-contained with points values and the Warlord trait that he's going to feature out of the Chaos Space Marine book. Now he's 115, which it's a little bit more than your standard 90 point loadout that you might blow on somebody, and I feel like a lot of competitive players take sorcerers. However, he might have some potential play with pairing him with Raptors and things like that, because he's no slouch. I mean, hitting on twos, both shooting and in close combat, is pretty solid. You can deep strike him in just like the other Raptors right there. He obviously benefits Raptors, like we've already seen. He has a 4-up invulnerable, which isn't exactly easy to get in the Chaos Space Marine Codex. There's plenty of characters that, like Lucius the Eternal. He's eternal, and yet he's very not eternal, if you know what I mean. So there's some potential here for him for sure, but it's just like where does it lie at? And he is locked into Black Legion specifically as well. So those Legion rules are only going to be able to benefit him, which kind of makes sense because he is a special character there. He will probably see some play. He's definitely going to be something that you take down for, just casual play to your local game store or something like that. But I really don't see him being kind of having an effect on the top level unless, there is a change in the rumored Vigilus 2 book, because besides this right here, there's no other content in this book for Chaos. So we'll build both of these guys here in a second, because I want to pair them up and go pew pew and play with my action figures once they're all put together. So let's jump over to Marneus here, And again, once you take him out of the box, I wanted to save this for you just to show you. There's not really that cool out of box kind of collector's experience that, especially you know with the former chapter master. I guess he's a former chapter. I don't know. I would think Gilmy would take the reins back after his arrival, but we'll just say the Asterix chapter master of the Ultramarines. You'd think he would have got something a little bit more, right? But it's just like two of the same size sprues as Haarken, the bases, and the instruction manual. So it's a little bit. I mean, I like the models and I like everything, but in the past, GW's done a little bit more for the character. So it was a little kind of weird to see for me personally. Now, as far as the model itself goes, there's 3 that make up this box set, which is really neat and super exciting because these guys can actually be fielded, and they are a separate sprue altogether, it looks like, that doesn't share any parts with Marneus. So who knows, in the future we might see him come out separately and them come out separately, because they can be taken as an elite choice. They can protect Robbie G. Not that Robbie G needs super protecting because he's under 10 wounds, and they can actually be the ones targeted because they're just infantry. However, they can, air quotes, protect characters much in the way that Death Shroud do for Death Shroud do for Death Guard. That's what I was trying to say. A lot of deaths in there. So here's how the models go together, and again, it's true multi-part. There's not a lot of that crazy computer slicing that we've seen in the past. The gauntlets of Ultramar go together very, very cool and very striking. It looks like the shoulder pads are on separate, and of course he's got the cool Eagle backpack that he's had for many years on the back there. Now I don't know why that thing has intakes, like it's a jump pack. Maybe it's a cooling system. I mean, just aesthetics wise, it's very puzzling, because I'm like, why are there intakes? Does he have a jump pack? I don't know. I don't have the answers to that question. The Victrix Honor Guard look very striking as well, very akin to the Honor Guard that came out with the box set when I think it first debuted back in 2005. You know, Power Sword, Storm Shield, all the accoutrement you would expect. You know, left and right halves, or excuse me, front and back halves. You can, you know, sub out the helmets if you want, sub out the backpacks if you want. Sky's the limit there, and that's pretty much the stuff that, well, at least the helmets that are interchangeable on Primaris Marines. Now, they are Primaris Marines, so that gives you a few tactical challenges when it comes to actually playing with these guys, but it's not too bad. So let's take a look at these sprues a little bit closer. So there's Marneus, and he definitely has some shared similarities between him and that Gravis captain that came out in the Dark Imperium. Lots and lots of cool looking features. The legs very much look like, you know, Gene Simmons. A lot of people made that joke there a while ago when we first saw the Dark Imperium box. And then of course, you know, everything you would expect from the previous and or current, the chapter master formerly known as Marneus Calgar, all the stuff on his chest and all of his tabard and everything like that. It looks very, very cool. The gauntlets at Ultramar look great. All that computer 3D rendering and the ammo feeds. This is very, very dynamic stuff we haven't seen, stuff we couldn't see in Pewter and stuff when it was designed in the not so distant past. We're gonna be playing with holograms before it's all done here, folks. Mark my words. Or maybe like board games, tactile, 3-dimensional figures will still be a thing in the near future. I don't know. I don't have all the answers, but man, that backpack or that cape looks very dynamic, very striking. That would be super fun to paint up as well. And then there's the intakes, the air quotes intakes for the backpack. I don't know what that's all about. And of course, he's stepping on some sort of head. Is that a warrior? I mean, it looks like a Tyranid warrior head right there. So there's that sprue. And then of course you got the Victrix Bodyguard, which kind of reminds me, if you saw our unboxing video of the Emperor's Royal Guard from Star Wars, they appear to go together very similarly. So left and right, or front and back halves. I don't know why I keep saying left and right. Front and back halves right there. And then, of course, there is going to be a little splicing. So you're going to want to use some of that super thin glue so you get a good seal and there's no gap in the middle of the cape right there. But once we get it assembled, maybe that is by design. Sometimes they're pretty ingenious when it comes to that. It's like underneath a ruffle of the cape. It's hard to tell from right now. Backpacks, heads, and the storm shields themselves. Again, Marneus has, Primaris of the Calgars, has his rules in the new Vigilus Defiant book, along with his Honor Guard right there, and everything's self-contained at the bottom. You've got all the points and everything. These guys are stacked with a 2-model team for 26 points. Seems pretty good. So we got Marneus Calgar, and he is 200 points with war gear included. Now, people are on the fence whether he's going to see play in the competitive circles. And, you know, there's a lot of, inside the Vigilus book here, there's stuff that will give you reroll to hits, or reroll ones to hit, reroll ones to wound. You know, some of the stuff that is kind of captain level things. Of course, chapter master level, I guess he isn't the chapter master formerly known as Marneus Calgar, but he does have the full-on reroll hits and wounds within 6 that we would expect from a chapter master level character. Master Tactician, he's going to give you extra command points. Remember, Robbie G gives you 3, and then his armor has a 4-up invulnerable, and all damage is halved, rounding up, done to him, which is pretty good. You can also reroll failed morale tests for this unit, this unit. Okay. Well, either way, he's got pretty good stat line. I mean, he is toughness 5, which you would expect for somebody of this statue. Wounds 8, which is really interesting to see from him in general. I guess he was beefy, and now he's even more beefier. He's a Primaris chapter master. Who knew? Victrix Honor Guard, on the other hand, might see a little bit more play, depending. They are Primaris, so you're going to have organization and transport challenges because, well, as of right now, they're very hard to get around the battlefield. However, they can deflect shots, they can guard things with their 2-up ability right here. You can also reroll failed morale checks for them. They have a 3-up invulnerable save. They also have that power sword. For 26 points, hitting on 3s, wounding on 3s, or hitting on 3s with both combat and shooting, not too shabby whatsoever. 3 wounds, toughness 5, 4 attacks. They're solid for 26 points. I wish we could get more dudes with this kind of stat line outside of you know, our retinue level characters and such, but their big hamstringing right now, or their Achilles heel, is that Primaris, and the fact that it's just hard to get Primaris duders around the table, and they're kind of redundant because they're the ones that can be targeted as opposed to some of the special characters that are below 10 wounds. So there's a use for them, not exactly sure what it is. Perhaps when they can go into transport, you could hide them in the transport, and when the time is right, you get them out if the transport didn't move, and then accompany the characters around them or something like that. I'm not sure what it'll actually end up being, but I could see this having more play than Marneus. But either way, both models, beautiful, awesome sculpts. Let's get them together and show you them together in all their detail. All right, so we got them all together. Crazy time. So a couple of things a couple of gotchas you need to be aware of. First off, this stem is like ridiculously fickle. It looks like it is super deep, but it's not. It's actually there's a semicircle, semisphere. It's slotted in a specific way, and if you don't put that stem in there, it doesn't go down all the way. You will literally bend it when you try to insert it into here. Now I left it apart so it can be painted separately, of course, but it's just something to be super aware of because it's hard to notice it, and they don't there you can see a better shot of it. See the little shape, there's a specific shape, and so he goes in at a specific angle, so don't break your stem off when you go to attach him. Very last thing right there. But it's a really cool model. I love the spear. I love the lightning claw right there. It isn't quite big enough to be Abaddon's, but definitely gives us hope that they'll do Abaddon right here in the future. I like the little trophy rack spiky bits things up on the top right there, and it just looks fresh. It doesn't look stupid with a bunch of wings. Everything's very dynamic. He's, you know, charging right in and everything. And then of course you have Marneus opposed over here on a 50 mil base, by the way. Now this guy, I did fib a little earlier. There are parts from that other sprue with the bodyguards on that, so just keep that in mind, that it isn't probably going to be available separately. There are parts, the ammo feeds, I think, and a couple of other things as well. Now you can see that they are about the same size, and we'll compare him well, let's do some comparisons right now. So he's obviously head and shoulders taller than Marneus because, well, he is a Cast Lord, but and he is a jump pack. But as you can see, compared to like the new Aramon that came out, he is taller as well. But he's also on the 40 mil base, but that's mostly because he's jumping and stuff. If you kind of get him down to ground level, he's about the same size, give or take. And then let me grab my Karn now. From, I guess, about 2 years ago, about this time, Karn came out. give or take. I think it was, maybe it was more in January. I forget. It's hard to say. Actually, it was before. It was the 7th edition, so it was about 2 years this time. So there he is right there. And you can kind of see he is about the same size, give or take, if he was on the ground. So he's definitely, you know, right around the same statue and the same, you know, quality and design level and everything, just as any of the other $35 lords right there. And then, of course, you've got Marneus. Didn't attach his ammo feeds. Actually, a lot of things here are just tacked on, like the front robes. The backpack is actually tacked on, and the ammo feeds aren't connected. Although I think they're studded and they could be connected, at least at one point, just to leave them loose for painting and then can kind of connect them later, I think would be a good idea. But that's just kind of how we did it. There are 2 different heads that I forgot to mention too. There's one with a kind of like that Mark IV kind of cross type deal with some wreath heraldry on top. And if once you start comparing them to existing models, he is about the same size as that Mark X Gravis Deuter. But which is kind of surprising if you think about it. Well, no, I guess he's maybe a little bit taller just because the base is, this is a resin base and this is the 50 mil round right there. He also comes with a Tyranid head option to be standing on, or that little piece right there. And then his Deuters definitely look good next to him, and they're on 40 mils. Now these guys, a little bit of pain in the rump here. I didn't realize how patchwork kind of stitched together the capes are. So you're going to have lots and lots of areas here that you're going to want to be careful with. You're going to want to use that super thin glue to get in there and fill those gaps up, the Tamiya extra thin cement, or you could go a different route and use some of the Vallejo plastic putty as well to get in there and fill those gaps and scrape them out. Now I used the thin glue and it is in there, but I'm going to go in later and kind of scrape it out and make sure it's all flush. In any areas I might use the plastic putty on just to get a nice smooth coat. So there's no gaps or anything like that, because they did not hide them very well, unfortunately. So just be aware, you might have to do a little bit more work on their capes, on the bodyguard capes. And then how does it compare to, how do they compare to a normal Primaris? Well, they seem to be a little bit shorter, but that's maybe because they're in fighting stance or something like that, whereas this is kind of striding, taking aim type deal. And then Marneus, Primaris of the Calgars, definitely is about Primaris size, but a little bit taller, as you would think is necessary for a chapter master that was the first to undergo the change over to Primaris. So that's everything. That's all of the 2 new models, of course, 2 kits, 5 models total for Warhammer 40K. Very exciting times. I can't wait to sit down and read through all the Vigilus Defiant and things like that, and see what's going on, and start processing all these rules and all that crazy stuff like that. So I hope you enjoyed this unbox and build for Marneus Calgar, and of course Haarken Angry World Deuter. Technical term, real thing there. So that's it for this one. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. It's very easy. Just hit subscribe. If you'd like to get miniatures like this back every month, you can become a supporter of ours over on Patreon, where you do get back miniature crates of the things we review on here every month in the mail straight to your door.
Spiking bits.